So thanks for the introduction, Nick. My name is Fiona. I'm going to give you a bit more detail about the programme that we're running. So there are two of us who do most of the work, and then we have Marcus Manafo, who's the APVC for Research Culture. So the reason that Nick and I are here and able to speak to you is because Marcus managed to get a donation from a philanthropist who's worked for many years in the pharmaceutical industry. This person, his name is John Climax, he founded what went on to be a massive clinical research organisation and sold it for many billions of dollars, and now actually does a lot of philanthropy, not just around reproducible research, but things like child trafficking, all kinds of very interesting philanthropic pursuits that he has. But his particular interest with regards to this project is translational research, and how translational research that's done in an academic community can then move its way into a commercial setting and be reproduced. Now his background is that he started his company in the 1990s, and reproducibility has come quite a long way since then, but I think we've still got quite a long way to go. So his donation allows us to work here at the University of Bristol. We are also starting to work with other institutions as well through UKRN, and we've done a little bit of work with Imperial College in London as well. So we are here essentially to introduce some practical tools that researchers can use. So we're interested in things that you can pick up and run with. We were interested in robust methodologies. One of Michelle's sins, a methodology should be understandable and have enough detail. And then ultimately as well, we want to be able to create transparent and open research data. So we do that by giving training. So we're running a whole series of workshops for PGRs. We did some this academic year, and we're rolling them out through the whole Faculty of Health and Life Sciences next year from October onwards. We also work with research groups to make bespoke tools as well. So we've worked with groups in PPN to make some bespoke tools for their particular lab. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of an example of this process-based tool that we worked on with them. So one of the things that Nick and I are big proponents of is actually taking your research process and mapping it out visually. This is a really good way to get consensus within a research group about what a methodology looks like and how a robust methodology can be built. So visual displays are very useful. They are particularly useful when they accompany the written text, and having consistency between all of your documentation is one of the foundations of reproducible research. So we work with a group in PPN to map out a particular procedure. This is only one snapshot of it. It wouldn't fit on the slide. But just the key points are is that what we've highlighted in the yellow is a potential for procedural variation. So these are procedural variations that happen due to the nature of the research that's being undertaken. And there's not a lot you can do about that, but what you can do is you can be aware that that variation exists, and you can collect metadata around that variation so you're documenting it. The other thing we've highlighted here in orange is something that we call a critical metadata element. So all a critical metadata element is it's a part of the research that is really important to reproducibility. And so therefore we want to really interrogate that process and make sure we collect metadata to demonstrate that we're putting as much control into it as we can. And if we can't control it, at least we can explain the degree of variability. So with this particular lab, we've used this process mapping, and we've also helped them develop a data management toolkit that's particular to the type of research that they do. Our website, thanks to George and his team, has gone live this morning, and we will be putting these templates up here. So there's a whole set of templates that you can download and adapt. They are specific to their lab, but they, as you might be able to see here, this is the SOP. It just contains some really good sensible advice, like what kind of file formats that you should use, what kind of study names. He's come up, Joe, who's created this, he's come up with some file naming conventions and a lot of detail. And this is all documentation generally that he's pulled together from various sources. So he's looked at what's out there, what other communities and what other academics have done, and has created a nice package around it. So I would, if you're interested in data management, I urge you to go and have a look at that on the website. So it's reproducibilitybydesign.com. These tools aren't on there now, but they will be very shortly. So the other thing I mentioned was openness and transparency as well, and this is something that Nick and I took a look at the end of last year. So we conducted a survey of published material from the Faculty of Life Sciences at that time, so it was the 5 schools within Life Sciences. We took 100 papers, 20 from each school, from 2023 in reverse chronological order, and we looked at content with regard to statements like author contribution statements, conflict of interest, data availability and ethical review if that was relevant to the research. And then we had a look at the underlying data. So if data was available, could we access it? So was there a complete data set, a partial data set, or none available? And how was that made available? Was it just open, or was it on request? And were we given instructions about how we could locate that? Where was the repository? How do we access, etc.? So we looked at 100 papers in total. We had to add an extra 3 to that sample because we couldn't actually access 3 of those manuscripts because they were behind paywalls or they were embargoed. And as you can see, 80 of those papers, 80% were original research, 75% primary data. The majority, well, actually, there was a real mix of research, so human research, animal research, and others as well, so the forest ecology, etc. So it was quite a broad sample. These are the results that we found. So in terms of statement inclusion, what we found is that author contribution statements were generally across the 5 schools actually quite well represented. So between 60 and about 85% of across the schools, there was a good author contribution statement in there that followed the kind of detail we expect with a methodology like credit. Conflict of interest statements, that was really good. The majority of papers had a conflict of interest statement, which generally was, there is no conflict of interest, but there were also interests that had been declared. The ethical review body statement, basically that in the bottom corner there, the majority of papers where we expected there to be some statement about ethical review, there was review documented. But the thing that was most interesting to us is the data availability statement. And what you can see here is that across the faculty, we had just over 50% of the papers had a data availability statement. But we had a very large variation between different disciplines, 22% in the School of PPN, over 80% in psychological science. So that was very interesting to us. And again, looking at actual data availability as well, when we looked at where the data was and if we could access it, again, we've got very big differences. Psychological science here, complete data set was actually available in a lot of cases, whereas in PPN, not so available. Biological sciences, again, good amount of data available. Biochemistry, cellular molecular medicine, a bit more patchy. So this is one area in terms of fair findability and accessibility that we think that we could actually solve quite easily. So this is something that we're going to be doing, is looking a bit more into this. We had just a little bit of information about the repositories. As you can see, psychological science loves OSF and pretty much everything goes in there. Data dryads, quite popular in biological science. Zenodo, again, fairly prevalent. But what we did find was quite interesting that of all the data sets that we looked at, only less than 5% were actually in Databricks, which was lower than we thought it was going to be. So the majority of our data is actually going outside of the university and being stored in external repositories. So the quick results summary, so 55% of articles had all the applicable statements that we were looking at. If we add in, did we have the statement and was there a complete data set? 26%. If we say, were the statements present, was the data there, and actually was it in a research repository, we're down to 18%. So this is something in terms of just findability and accessibility that we like to improve. But we feel that we need more data, so this is where we're going to ask for your help. We have created a survey which has gone through ethical review, and it's a survey designed for people who are involved in research, so has some kind of role in research data in terms of whether you facilitate sharing or you actually share your own data, to explore some of the barriers to data sharing, because we're aware that different disciplines have different issues and they are quite varied. So what we would like you to do, we'll leave this QR code up, we'll also send it out to you. We'd very much like you to complete the survey. If you do complete the survey, and if you provide us with your email address, you'll get the chance to win one of 3 £50 gift cards. So, I mean, think of the number of people in this room, we've got quite a good chance. Hopefully we'll get a few more people that complete this. But we're going to run the survey, we'll analyse it, and we will of course share the results with you. So that's something that we would like you to do today. If you are involved in research data in terms of generating it, managing it, and you think you've got something to contribute around what the barriers are to data sharing, we would love you to fill in the survey. And if you're not sure, have a look at the survey and then you can decide if it's appropriate to you. So that's it, that's all from me. Finally, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate you turning up. Hopefully the pizza's going to be here shortly. Do check out our website. We have just launched it, but we have got lots of things that we're going to add to it. So we're going to add the tools that I mentioned, the data management tools. We're doing work with lots of different groups here at the university, and as we create outputs, so things like process maps for different types of research, we will add those on. And as Nick said, come and speak to us if you've got an idea about reproducible research, or you want to talk through something you've heard about today. Come and speak to us. You can email Nick or myself, and we've got an email address of reproducibility@bristol.ac.uk. Thank you.